Hi everybody. So my name is Randy Hewitt. We have little tent cards here. I'm president of the Community Foundation here in our neck of the woods. I'm going to be kind of leading us through this chance to learn together today. But we're going to briefly go around the table and do some introductions because you're going to hear from all of us. So Bill, can we start with you?
Sure. Hi everyone. Good morning. My name is Bill Brzezinski and I'm the Chief Program Officer at the Economic Opportunity Program in Elmira, New York, local community action agency, also the Program Director for Head Start.
Good morning, I'm Darlene Petroni, and I'm the coordinator for the Nurse Home Visitation Program for School Readiness Project, and also work at CIDS in Elmira.
Hi, I'm David Andreen. I'm the Executive Director of CIDS, and we provide the Nurse Home Visitation component, as Darlene indicated.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Cristofero, and I work for Family Services of Chemung County, Inc., and I'm the coordinator of the Youth Promotional Health Screening Program.
Good morning, my name is Don Cadell. I'm a retired public school administrator, currently serving on the BOCES Board of Education and as president of the County Child Care Council.
Hi, good morning. I'm Blair Jennings, Executive Director of the Chemung County YMCA.
I'm Stephanie Jelliff, the Parent Education Coordinator for the School Readiness Project, and I work for the Economic Opportunity Program.
Hi, Ruth Harvey. I'm the Executive Director of the Chemung County Child Care Council and Chair of the Early Care and Education Work Committee for SRP.
I'm Ellen Wall. I'm retired, but was past Director of the Child Care Council and was involved with Head Start.
And I'm Sarah Palmer. I am Director of Grants and Communications for the Community Foundation.
Thank you. All right, so what we're going to do today is actually in a couple of different phases. We're going to start with about a 10-minute video that will tell you the SRP story from a lot of the voices here, but also some people who aren't in the room that are important to the project, which include the superintendents of our local school districts. After that, we have a series of questions that we've already gotten from all of you. Sarah very kindly has been coordinating this effort, and so we have some preloaded questions. That's going to take us, in a perfect world, around 30 minutes, we think, to get through those 11 questions, but you all work in this world, so you know we love to talk about what we do. So we're going to do our very best to make sure our answers are concise, but we've kind of practiced answering those questions for you. Then we have some data slides to talk about the results of the project. I think that's important and one of the reasons we like talking about it. And lastly, we'll move into open questions from the field. Along the way, we're going to try really hard not to get too far into the weeds, because any one tiny part of this project could be a day-long conference. If you feel at the end that something specific that you wanted to know was not addressed, please send Sarah an email. I think everyone has Sarah Palmer's contact information, and we'll make sure to get the right person to contact you directly and have a one-on-one conversation about that very specific point. And lastly, we are happy to have follow-up webinars that dive much deeper into one part of the project. But today is all about an overview and all about just getting a taste of this whole concept. Feel good? Okay. So we're going to start with a video that's actually a series of separate vignettes typically available. They're only a couple of minutes long, but we put them all together to give you the whole big picture. And this was produced by students here at our very own BOCES. We're very proud of them, and their teacher, Rich Preston. So it's another example of our collaboration. Thank you. Here we go.
The Chemung County School Readiness Project started back in 2006 when a group of people who work in all sorts of agencies related to children under the age of 5 started thinking about working together differently. They came to the Community Foundation with the idea that they could put all of their efforts in one basket and see if you could really change the world for kids under 5 in Chemung County.
School Readiness, the whole project is really an exemplar of how the whole community has come together to make sure that we support families, support children right from birth.
The partnership's incredible. It's one of the few county-wide efforts that really impact public schools. That you have leaders from all over the county, all different walks of life, talking about supporting children from birth until they're school age.
Often we just hear about pre-K and kindergarten, but a lot happens prior to that. The parents being the child's first teacher and basically working with the parents from the hospital all the way up to a kindergarten experience.
But we know that the development of children in the early onset is critical in their development and in their initiation into the school environment.
This is one of the very few around the country that have actually taken a county-wide approach to early childhood learning.
Kindergarten teachers over the past few years have started talking to us saying, kids are coming more ready for kindergarten. It's really happening. It's no longer the idea that certain kids are ready for kindergarten. What we're finding in Chemung County is because of particularly the commitment to a really county-wide universal pre-K experience, these kids are ready. So much happens in those first 5 years. We think of it as this very quiet, private time at home, and it's really the opposite. A child, from the time they're born until they're 5 years old, their brain really takes in the majority of what it will take in a lifetime.
Research has shown that the first 3 years of life are the most important period of time for brain development. So our goal is to assess parents to take full advantage of that period of time in their child's life.
Once upon a time, the measure was simply, how well does this child know their letters? Sort of, what is their pre-literacy status? We look at it so much more complexly than that. We look at the child's social health, emotional health, how they interact with others, how they listen, how can they follow directions, do they have the ability to work on a task. With that in mind, what we're measuring is a very powerful bit of information, because we're not just saying this kid knows their ABCs, we're saying this kid is ready to thrive as a student.
And those students come in as kindergartners, that the field is pretty leveled. And that's the key, is that when students come into kindergarten, that they're leveled. That's the main philosophy behind the project, is that give the students and the families all the resources they need, so when they hit kindergarten, they're ready to go.
Really, we want all children to reach their potential, so the sooner we can help with that process, the better.
That it's essential, that it's bonus time, and once you create an environment where students can come into kindergarten at or above grade level, and that we have diagnostics to determine where students are successful, where they need more supports, principals are able to make class lists, they're able to assign students to particular teachers based on strengths and areas of concern, they're able to talk to parents earlier in their educational career to let them know what their experiences will be, what remediation and support looks like, or that some of the children coming out of pre-K are reading at a first and second grade reading level and are going to have experiences with children that are 7 or 8 years old. So I think it's provided opportunities that obviously otherwise we wouldn't be able to provide.
So as a community member, there's no future for our community that doesn't involve the very young children of today. These people, that's what they are, they're very tiny people. They're going to someday be your doctor, your neighbor, a business owner, and so we can either make sure they're prepared to be givers in society, to be the people that make this community hum, and for hundreds of years moving forward, we just see a community that continues to get better and better and better, or on the other side, if we don't prepare them, if we don't look at them from the time they're born as just the future of everything here, they take us in a different direction.
It's a great welcome center to our district as well as Horseheads and Elmira Heights, and it's a program that we're very blessed to have. I think one of the most exciting pieces about working with the county is the outreach to parents, that parents understand that they'll be communicated with all the way from birth until they're school age. We're able to support parent partners in our elementary schools. We're able to provide a parent resource center to give parents an opportunity to play and work with their child in a supervised fashion, as well as get tips on how to support education at home outside of the classroom.
Well, I think it's really important because the resources are there for parents to understand that where kids should be developmentally. They look at the whole child. They look at their health. They look at their psychomotor development. They look at their speech development. It's right when they're welcome to the world in the local hospitals. Connection is made with the families to have them feel safe and supported by the medical profession that then links into the schools ultimately in a few years. But we know that the development of children in the early onset is critical in their development and their initiation into the school environment.
We're looking at all students, birth to age 5, regardless of income. Everyone is treated equally. And here in our district, our pre-K is set up that way that we offer to all students regardless of income. So, and Head Start, of course, is income eligible. There are private providers out there that provide alternatives for parents, which is really, really important.
Groups of people are getting together and saying, it takes all of us to get this job done. And those are tremendous high points for me, to see the kindergarten teachers telling us our kids are ready, and these parents saying, I want to do this.
Learning doesn't begin at school. Learning begins in the womb, actually. Learning begins from the time a child is conceived, and that's why it's so important for a mother to have good prenatal care. Early intervention is key. The sooner you can identify early problems that a child might have and intervene in a helpful manner, both in the home and also in the school or preschool environment, the more likely these children are going to thrive by the time they get to school.
The Chemung County School Readiness Project offers nurse home visitation to parents of all children in Chemung County at birth. There are nurses that go into the hospital and offer home visitation at the hospital. Then we contact them after they get home from the hospital.
I think that I'm a big believer in the concept that it takes a village to raise a child, but that doesn't mean it takes a village instead of a family. The family is by far the most important early teacher of children, and I think that we need to emphasize that again. That's why the home visitation is so important. It enhances the family skills.
So kids are not just coming, spinning their wheels and wasting time. They're doing outstanding things. They're doing things in pre-K that used to be done in kindergarten and first grade. So it's a very high caliber experience.
It's nice to have the other people that you know that you can reach out and go and do that with, so that you have people that your kids feel comfortable around and that you feel comfortable interacting with too. It's hard, especially if you're new to an area, to make that jump to just go out and meet people. And if you have a comfortable environment where you can do that, it makes it a lot easier.
Through meeting here at the Resource Center, I've met a lot of other moms, and it's helped me to become a better mother. We've bounced different ideas off from each other, and as far as parenting styles, you know, if I didn't have that as a resource, then I don't know what I would have. But it's really helped me to be the mother that I am, and it's really helped, I think, my kids to develop as well.
But it just brings everything together for the parent. They're talking with someone that they trust, that they built a rapport with in the school readiness individuals that go into the home. Emotional health is part of our overall health, and the purpose of the screenings is to make sure that kids are on track
that is our goal. And that is the goal of the School Readiness Project as well. So this collaboration is such an exciting program for us as well as school readiness.
Alright, so we hope that was helpful as an introductory piece. And now what we're going to do is move right into those questions that we've already received from you. So I'm going to turn this over to Don for the first question.
Okay. I'm going to let that get up there so I can make sure everybody knows what that question was. But it had to do with school readiness, the definition of school readiness, and the metric that we've chosen to be able to measure that, and for those young people who are ready for school. As Randy indicated in the video, we've taken a fairly comprehensive look at the definition of school readiness, so that it includes both cognitive as well as social emotional factors. The challenge for us in the early going was to figure out how we were going to establish those metrics and measurable metrics that would carry us forward. In working with the Children's Institute in Rochester and the local school districts, we ended up choosing 2 screening instruments that are become part of the screening that happens for just as a matter of course when children enter our public schools. One is called the Classroom Observation Record, or CORE, and there are 4 subscales that are related to cognitive development. The other is called the Teacher Child Rating Scale, TCRS, and that's the instrument that has also 4 subscales that are related to social emotional development. The folks who really kind of decided then how to blend those 8 subscales that were from those 2 instruments into a readiness yardstick, if you will, were really from Teachers College at Columbia University, which was the group that did our original study in 2007. So once again, they took those 8 subscales. They've established through their with their psychometric thinking exactly what would be valid and reliable, and that's been the yardstick then that was used in the follow-up study that you'll hear a little bit more about later.
Great. All right, our second question is, what's in the special sauce? What have been the essential elements for the collaboration to envision and achieve its goals? So I'm going to take that one, and I want to start by saying we've come to realize that it's the relationships in the room. That's the special sauce. A lot of people here have been working together for decades, and because they've worked together so long, there's a lot of trust. We'll start with there, because what we brought to the table that was different here was local funding. All of the new dollars that were put into our system to expand and create this big network of school readiness, we used local philanthropy and local government money, matched between the Community Foundation and Chemung County. What that means is we didn't have an RFP come down from the federal government that had a bunch of guidelines associated with it. Instead, this group of people sat together for hundreds of hours to devise a project that would work for Chemung County. And in that, they shared a lot of information. They shared strengths. They actually spoke up and shared weaknesses in their program. And the most important thing that happened was we didn't just say, here's the new pot of money, here's $2 million, we're going to make equal slices of the pie. Rather, we said, okay, this costs this much to do, here's the money. This costs this much to do, here's the money. And the programs never started jockeying for position and trying to find some way to change those proportions. So that's really, though, going all the way back to the beginning of the answer. We talk a lot. It really is the relationships and the trust that were built over years of working together.
Question number 3 is, what is the specific role of the Child Care Council? Actually, we've been involved since the very beginning and the original planning of the School Readiness Project. And we also serve as the chair of the Early Care and Education Work Group, which consists of all early care and education specialists in the county, family daycare providers, pre-K teachers, parents, and in that work, we developed a 5-year plan as to what we would do to fill the gaps in early care and education. Currently, we're working on professional development for the child care industry, as well as trying to get the child care programs ready for the full implementation of Quality Starts New York. Excuse me. Another role that we have is that we manage the pre-K assessments, which is the ECHRS, the ELCO, and the class. We have master observers who go into 50 classrooms in our county and do those assessments. That's paid for through the school districts, Head Start, and a private foundation. One of our biggest roles, as Brandy was talking about, is the collaboration and the trust and the relationship with the folks in this room. And so we're the steering committee of the School Readiness Project, and we meet every 2 weeks to talk about the project, evaluate the project, change the project, look at what funding we have, where we might have to make changes, and we do that ongoing. And it's a huge commitment on our part, but it's been the most effective way, and we've gotten the results that we hoped for. So.
Folks, here in the room, there's one site that is not seeing our computer screen. So as you go through the questions, please read that question so that one site is aware of that.
Good morning. Stephanie and I will be answering question number 4, which is how are parents engaged both in the project and within the collaboration. I am going to speak specifically in regards to the nurse home visitation engagement. We meet with parents at the hospital very briefly, and then we give them a call when they get home from the hospital. That's a very good time to engage, because often parents may start to have questions at that point. If a parent was in school or was working, they're available and they're home at that point. So it's a nice time for the parent to connect with the nurse. So the nurse will go to the home, and one of the things we like to do is share the message that the parent is really the first teacher for those most important years of a child's life. So once we try to get that message across and really talk to the parent about that, we have specific curriculum that we share and things that we do at each visit, but we also like to tailor each visit specifically towards what the parent is interested in and what they would like to get out of the home visitation, so that we can really help each parent get the most out of the visits. And then the very last thing I'm going to say about the nurse home visitation is, besides the curriculum, is it's just a source of information for parents throughout Chemung County. So any activities or events or resources or anything that is happening in Chemung County, the nurses can bring that information to the parents, and then the parents can become involved in their community. And then Stephanie's going to talk a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that there are several formal and informal parent learning opportunities. One thing that the School Readiness Project has brought to the county is a location for all of those informal and formal parenting to be listed, and that's on our website and our events tab, listed by day of the week, what's available on that particular day, what's available throughout the month, and then just some things that parents can do on their own. Some of our formal learning opportunities are through parent education and support groups and classes that are provided not just by the School Readiness Project, but throughout different agencies through the community, but those are all listed on our website so that parents can access them. The other thing that our School Readiness Project has brought to the community is an expansion of our family resource centers, and those are more informal learning opportunities for parents to seek out support and education from other families and also from the director of those programs.
Thank you. Question 5 is, what, if any, personnel changes were made to accommodate responsibilities of the School Readiness Project? I'm going to take that one. The Community Foundation has played the role of facilitator and leader for the project since the beginning, which is a little bit, the beginning is hard to define. I think the conversation started maybe 40 years ago, but this particular project started about 6.5, 7 years ago. So the Community Foundation stepped in and said, okay, we'll be that guiding force that will make sure meetings happen, agendas happen, minutes are kept, records are kept, etc. Quickly, though, we realized that there were some gaps in personnel. First example would be the position of Parent Education Coordinator for the county. So as a group, we had a lot of conversation deciding the best place for that position to live. was at our Economic Opportunity Program. And Bill, we actually collaborated on hiring that position. So the position is housed there, but members of this group were part of the hiring process. And that was Stephanie. So that worked. She's here still. And so that's one example. We realized if we didn't have one person coordinating all of those parent education opportunities around the county and putting them online and making sure that the media knows about them and all of that, that we'd be lost pretty quickly. And then other positions that we realized, again, at the very beginning we would need were obviously some more nurse home visitors and a manager for the nurse home visitors. So we worked with CIDS to create and house and hire those positions. And then the last thing we realized as far as positions created in the community was this group we call the Master Observers. We've trained seasoned professionals in early childhood work that go into pre-K, Head Start, and some preschool classrooms. It's kind of all the classroom environments for 3- and 4-year-olds in our county and provide a tremendous amount of feedback to those teachers. They're not exactly staff, but they're trained as if they are. They're very dedicated community members. With that said, those are the positions we had to create. Every single person in this room, though, had to adapt and had to say, yes, I'm president of the Community Foundation, but I'm also the facilitator of the School Readiness Project. When Sarah came on board at the foundation, part of her understanding was, yes, she runs all of our grants and communications, but she also has a vital role in the School Readiness Project. And every single person here has at some point looked at either their board, their staff, or in the mirror and reminded themselves and others that in addition to this very big job they have, they're also a specific role in our project. So that adaptation has been as important to the success of the project as the hiring we've done. Okay. There we have it. Number 6.
Number 6. What assets did the collaborating partners bring to the table? What other local resources have been tapped to benefit the collaboration? You've heard a couple of times that we have trusting relationships. We've worked together for many years, and it may be cliche, but we truly can't minimize the importance of that. We've all had important pieces over the years, but we really work to enhance them. The Community Foundation certainly was a huge help in coordinating it, so that was new. And we also have to acknowledge the county's part, because they chose to believe in our attempts, and they also contributed to it. For us to talk specifically about all of the services would go beyond my minute and a half. So we'll try and touch on that a little bit more later.
And question 7 is, what do we attribute our success to? And so I'm going to try and stay within my minute and a half, but
we're actually doing pretty well on time.
Oh,
so,
good.
Yeah, you can make that 2.
Well, and actually,
I'm going to go to 4.
That's good. I was afraid we were getting too serious.
Evidence of the collaboration right there.
But actually, I think all I'm going to do in answering that question is to sort of punctuate several things that were said, because I think it's important from a systemic standpoint for those of you who are looking out there. You've heard several times about the continuity in leadership. It's been very important that most of the same people with whom we sat and developed the original strategic plan are still actually sitting at the table, which says something about them or the project, I'm not sure which. The other thing is, as you just heard, is the regular facilitation. I know that many of you, as I look at your faces, probably have been a part of a number of different community conversations where people have sought to sort of bring together what we've been talking about. Usually the problem is that everybody then retreats back to their respective silos, and there isn't anybody who makes sure that the following 2 weeks go by and there isn't another meeting. We've had the blessing, really, of death taxes and an SRP meeting every 2 weeks for the last 6 or 7 years. And again, having that continuity of facilitation has been extremely important, I think, to getting this done. The other thing I hear from folks as I walk around, it's been, and I've got 45 years logged in public education, very unusual to find the willing partners of the county government, the philanthropic community, the public schools. As you can imagine, just getting 3 school districts to be able to agree on using the same screening instrument was rather incredible, actually. Head Start, the community agencies, without the willing partners, this doesn't exist. The comprehensiveness of the approach also been a part of many sort of single efforts at one or the other of these things. What we believe is probably the results are as much attributable to the whole as they are to any one of the parts. So for each family, and you know most families present multi-issues, there is something within the scope of the project that's of use. I think it was Ralph Marino, the superintendent in Horseheads, who mentioned the universality of access. We consciously strove to say this was not going to be a program that said you can't come because you make too much money. And so we have really offered the same degree of service to everybody at the very beginning. Admittedly, we have, within the scope of delivering the services, the intensity of that effort may change, but the opening and the possibilities exist for every parent and family in the community. You heard earlier, too, a little bit about leveraging of local resources. One of the things that I think has been unique about this is it has not been the response to a specific request for proposal that came with a whole lot of other people's rules. We've been able to make our own rules because the resources are local, and so we've had control over being able to make a change in the allocation as the program dictated. And lastly, I think I mentioned the point that Randy mentioned earlier about the master observers. We really have had an excellent conversation with the Head Starts, with the daycare community, and with the school districts to establish a common set of quality standards. That, I believe, is also very important to the work going forward. Thanks.
Okay, here's where we exceed our time limit right here. How was the relationship with the hospital established? And then we have a number of sub-questions. How is the information given to new parents at initial contact selected? Who makes first contact? What takes place at the nurse home visit? How and who follows up? Okay. CIDS has, for more than 40 years, provided an infant registry program, nurse home visitation services, the original prenatal early infancy project, which is now the NFP program, started here. We've had a number of home visitation projects, but none of them actually serve that whole population. We also operate a Healthy Families Chemung County program, part of the New York State Home Visiting Program, and they have requirements of eligibility, and children need to be younger than 3 months when they enroll. So what this program was able to do was provide a home visitation program that filled in those gaps, that allowed us to provide that universal home visitation service, and also allowed families involvement in determining which program was going to be best with them. So how does this all relate back to the hospital? We're in the hospital 5 mornings a week. We do our best to enroll everyone and follow up on those days that we're not able to be there. That is one of the limitations of funding. And it's been a collaborative relationship with the hospital. We have one hospital in the community that delivers the babies. And one of the positive effects has been a nurse practitioner saying to us that the home visitation, because of the School Readiness Project, we are able to make home visitation normal, which has really helped facilitate that collaboration.
And I think that's been very important. We make that first contact in the hospital, so it's a good time to meet with the families. It's very brief, but then we follow up with them after we get home from the hospital. Again, being a universal program is wonderful because it's for everyone. No one's thinking, oh, if I'm in this program, someone might think there's something wrong or I need the help, but it's for everyone, which has really opened up the doors for us too. We collaborate with different places. We give Books at Birth at the hospital. Books at Birth is a program that we help deliver the books at the hospital. So then once we get home, we make the contact. We meet with the parent that I talked about a little bit before. During home visits, we talk about age-related materials. We have set curriculum, but as I mentioned before, we also like to tailor the visits to the family and the family's particular needs. There might be developmental screenings that take place. We go over safety and nutrition and all kinds of information. We answer questions for parents. If parents have questions about specific topics or just a question about, the baby's not sleeping and what do I do? Just answering questions like that. And then as far as following up, the nurses follow up with the families. If there's something going on, the nurse might give the family a call back the next day, give the family some information on what they might want to try. Sometimes it's a community partner that follows up because there might be a referral that's made, so someone from the community, another agency with the approval of the family, that referral is made, and then someone from another agency may call. And then follow-up also happens with a parent. Often a parent might call and say, you know what, I just wanted to call, that Parent-Child Resource Center, I went over there and I met another family and the baby had a great time and we're going to go back. Or they might be calling saying, baby's not rolling over, I'm concerned, can you stop out, or can I talk to you a little bit about things that I can do? So really, it's everybody working together and everybody following up and just everybody in this whole group working together with the families, and the families also doing their part to do what helps.
Question number 9 is how many children are being served? In Chemung County, we have about 1,000 births per year, and between all the different service areas, we are able to serve all of those children to some degree before they reach kindergarten.
Question number 10. Do programs combine existing funding, such as child care subsidy, pre-K private funding? How do the funding streams work together? Though we strive to make sure that the experience for families is seamless, that they feel like they're just interacting with the School Readiness Project, behind the scenes, we keep the funding streams pretty clear. So we know exactly what county dollars are doing, we know exactly what foundation dollars are doing, we know exactly what everyone's contracts are doing, and all of that is segregated. But that's just so that we can manage the project. There are times when we do share funding. There have been times when Child Care Council, for instance, was able to help by kicking some of their funding, their SRP funding, over to nurse home visits when that was needed. We've seen a lot of funding shared with parent education. So it's a tough question to answer because it's yes and no. Yes, we share funding, but no, we don't share any funding we're not allowed to share. That's very clear. Bill, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, part of the beauty of this particular pocket of money is that it is flexible. As we talked earlier, it doesn't have a lot of regulatory strings attached to it. One of the examples that's helpful for me as a Head Start director, Stephanie's position is actually shared between SRP and the Head Start program. The job description is identical. Parent involvement, parent engagement is a critically important piece of Head Start presently. To have the availability of a position like Stephanie's makes for that work to be, again, seamless. It looks as if it's happening the way it should, and the funding is discrete, but you can't always do everything that you want to do with limited grant sources that are available from current funders.
Great.
Number 11. Okay. What efforts have been made to get physicians and other healthcare providers to buy into the school readiness concept? Actually, it wasn't that difficult. First of all, we've got a very committed group of pediatricians, medical social workers, all the healthcare providers. obstetricians, the programs that I mentioned earlier, excuse me, we're very used to the services that we have provided. We have physicians on our boards. We included physicians in the planning of it. We have ongoing contact with them, the nurses. One of the things that we do is we administer a maternal depression scale, and that was actually a surprise to us. We ended up finding out that there was more maternal depression than we had initially thought, but the nurses follow up and contact the doctors and let them know the status of things. And again, the normalization that they feel that our home visitation is able to provide, it's truly a give and take. Darlene?
And I just think that I agree with everything that David said as far as it hasn't been difficult at all, because I think people in the community, the physicians, the hospital that's been a part of everything that we're doing, have really come together and have seen the results. As Dr. McHugh said earlier on the video, early intervention is very important. And we've had different times where we've had a family in particular who on a visit was thinking something just doesn't seem right, but I don't know enough to talk to the doctor about it. We encourage them, go ahead and talk to the doctor. They talked to the doctor made an out-of-area referral. The out-of-area specialist was amazed at how early the child was presented, and treatment was given, minimized treatment because of the early intervention, and then it made the family happy. The baby was doing much better, and physicians know and see this, and that's why we get so much support from them. They realize that it is an important program to have.
Also, they've volunteered their time to work with the nurses when they have specific questions. They come over and provide clinical in-services for the staff so that they can be up on the latest or discuss specific cases. It works great.
We receive calls sometimes from the physicians to go out and do a developmental screening to check something specific that they may have a concern about. So there really is that collaborative effort in the community.
Thank you all. That was our the preloaded questions we had from all of you. Now we're just going to turn our attention for a few moments to the results of our project. We decided from the first moment that we were going to put this money into it and have this project we've discussed with you, that though we all understand that everyone around the table has their own goals. For instance, the IDS Nurse Home Visitors, we want to have 100% of families enrolled in the project. Or Stephanie wants to have thousands of people attend parent education session. And Ruth wants every child care experience in the county at all times to be high quality. Everyone has these individual goals. That we would, of course, recognize that and respect that, but as a group, we would have one goal. We'd have one goal we present the community, and that would be to make more kids ready for kindergarten. And we never strayed from that and went into, no one ever had a press conference of their own saying, guess what, we've enrolled 97% of families. That was always a footnote to how are we doing in making kids ready for kindergarten. So in 2007, we conducted a baseline assessment of the kindergartners in our community, the entire county, all 3 school districts, to see how they were doing before all of these services were introduced into the community. And it was really terrible. When we looked at all 8 domains, we found that actually only about 47% of kids were ready for kindergarten, which was much worse than we thought. We thought, just based on Dibble's data, that we were working with about 40% of kids not ready for kindergarten. And then we learned that 47% of kids were ready for kindergarten. I like to think about, that was a very dark, dark day when we got those results. And we looked at each other and wondered, what on earth are we going to do with this? The problem was much bigger than what we realized. So we did what we did, all the things you just heard about. We did lots of it. And in 2011, we conducted a follow-up to that baseline to look at the incoming class of the 2011-2012 kindergarten cohort. and found that after this concerted effort, 68.6% of kindergartners were ready to be there, which was a gigantic change. We cut the number of kids unprepared for kindergarten by 42% in just 5 years. We worked with a team at the University of Albany, and they were so stunned by these results that they checked it and checked it and checked it and found 20 different ways to test the data because they thought there's no way that they've had this kind of change in only 5 years. We also found that every single school district benefited, and you'll see on this slide, the Elmira City School District jumped from 44.7% of kids being ready for kindergarten to 67.5% of kids being ready for kindergarten. Horsehead saw a jump from 52.5% to almost 72% of kids in our Horsehead School District ready for kindergarten. And Elmira Heights went from 50 to just over 60%. I like to tease Elmira Heights that they have half-day pre-K, so they get half the results. If they go to full-day pre-K, we'll give them the full results. They don't have the money for that, and I know a lot of you understand that. So the next slide, please.
If I can just add one other piece.
Sure.
Just to add the perspective that prior to 2007, our districts were not collecting social emotional readiness data. That addition to the overall rubric and kind of the awareness of the importance of that dimension, if you will, I think is underscored by those results of what happened 5 years later.
Absolutely. So some other key findings here that we like to call out from our study. And just to let you know, we're conducting this same assessment of this year's kindergartners. So in June, we'll have a fresh crop of information for you to see, are we continuing with this trend of readiness? 80.4% of youth who participated in pre-K were ready for kindergarten. That's our strongest corollary, or what our researchers find over and over again is that pre-K experience really cannot be overstated how important that is for a student going into kindergarten. One of my favorite things about this project is the next point that we're pulling out, that the greatest gains actually were observed among children whose mothers had less than a high school education. Back in 2007, that group, only 39% of them were ready for kindergarten, and a lot of us, when we first got this data, sort of went, well, that makes sense. Mom didn't finish high school or is still in high school, and that's a tough road for those families. But with this kind of effort, the nurse home visitors, the high quality childcare, the parent education, the opportunities to go to a parent resource center, we found that those same group of, not the same exact kids, but kids in 2011 whose mothers had not finished high school, 75% of them were ready for kindergarten. So that doesn't have to become some sort of destiny for a family. The last thing to point out is that in 2007, over 14%, almost 15% of kids were entirely unready for kindergarten. We look at 8 different factors, and 14.8% of kids scored a 0. They weren't ready at all. And about 14.1% were completely ready. That's an 8. So a kindergarten teacher would get up in front of a classroom and look at all of her kids, and 15% were completely unready, and about 14% were wildly ready, and then she had a whole bunch of kids in the middle too. That was an almost impossible task for that teacher to accomplish in the course of a year, bringing all of those kids to some sort of common ground. Because of SRP, and this is, I think, this is what our kindergarten teachers are noticing, is how different the mix of kids in their room is. In 2011, we've changed the balance, and actually the 0, the not ready at all, has dropped to below 6% in a room. And the completely ready has jumped to over 28%. So when this teacher, he or she, looks out at their classroom, now they're seeing about a third of their room totally ready to be there. And in a classroom of between 20 and 30 kids, just a few kids not ready to be there, and lots of kids in the middle. And that's just a better experience for everybody. And they can get somewhere. And they've had to change what they do in the kindergarten classroom. They've had to actually turn around and say, I can't just teach the same way I've been teaching for 25 years. My kids are so smart, they're so ready, they're ready to do more One joked once to me, she makes it to the end of a lesson plan, which is something that never happened before. She kind of get to the third step and then they'd have to move on. So she makes it all the way through her plan, and she loves that. So those are our results. That's why we're talking to you today, because we have something that's clearly working here in Chemung County. Anything to add, friends? No? Okay. So at this point, we are ready to actually turn this over to you all and take your questions for the next 30 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap up a little bit for the last 5 minutes. And we're eager to hear what you have to say to us.
It might work really well. I've given you all a list of the sites that are out there. If you just start at the top and go down.
Sure, we can call on you.
Just as I did at the start, have them on mute.
All right.
Open them up.
Why don't we
Unless
try
somebody wants to jump in real quick because they got a burning question.
We here in Ithaca have some questions. Do you want to go down through the list or take ours first?
Let's take yours first, you brave Ithaca folks.
Okay, let's see. Who asked? Somebody wants to know about the duration of the nursing visits.
Yeah, Kathy did. Yeah.
Duration and periodicity are two huge questions when it comes to nursing visits. One of the things that I said initially is that we are able to have the parents involved in the amount of intervention that they're interested in. So in some, we don't walk in with a specific curriculum. We walk in with resources that are developmentally appropriate for that situation, but the visits are mostly guided by the parent. So they could vary from very specific developmental questions or get into a great deal of depth regarding social issues. How's that for being very specific?
Is that okay, Kathy? I'd like to know how many times that turns out to be. Or typically, what's the average? Yeah.
Well,
once a week.
Boy, would we love to be able to provide nurses once a week.
Yeah.
You wanna take that?
Well, I'd just like to talk about one of the things with the School Readiness Project nurse home visitation is it's really been able to fill a gap, which has been nice because we've had the PEAK program and we've had the Healthy Family program, and they all have their different criteria. So with the School Readiness Project, we're able to meet with the families that don't, for some reason, either fit into one of the other programs or can't allow the time for the other programs. For the School Readiness Project, we make quarterly visits, although we can meet more often than that with the families. We can send information out to them. Again, they can call in and have questions if they'd like to have questions. And we did have at the beginning when we started, we were seeing every child up until age 5. Due to New York State funding cut for some of our funding, we are now seeing children to age 3, but and some people less than that, but they then transfer into other programs. We have an early childhood services team which does developmental screenings periodically until a child enters school, and they do all of the screenings for the Elmira, Horseheads, and Elmira Heights school districts. So we transfer a child hopefully maybe into Head Start or into pre-K programs. So we like to keep seeing that transition so that the child is getting a service maybe from the start as home visiting and then transferring into something else so that they continue right on until they enter school, being involved with someone and having some sort of support service with someone to go to if they have questions.
The other thing is the parents never have to leave. They may choose not to be a part of the program for a period of time, but then they may have a question and they'll call us. And that's one of the things that we wanted to make sure throughout all of the components of the SRP is that the parents know that there's somebody there that they can call. So if they have a child care question, they know to call Ruth, or they can call a nurse, or they can call a parent educator. So they never have to leave. It just may change a little bit. And that's the beauty of the flexibility that we have with the way that we're funded. I don't have to worry about biweekly visits for an hour to an hour and a half.
Right.
You know, I can go and get a visit when it fits for my schedule as a parent.
Excellent.
Do you have a connection with midwives or others who are facilitating home births?
No, not because we don't want that. We don't actually utilize a lot of midwifery services. There was an office, but for whatever reason, it closed.
Okay.
So it doesn't come up often. Not that we're not open to it by any means.
And Heather, you have a question?
Yeah, what types of plans are you making long term for funding so that you can
We
continue
have a
the
PayPal
project?
account that you can send
Great. Well, we're all signing up right now.
Thank you for that. So when we started this, it was all on this 5-year plan that we'd fund this for 5 years, we would look at it, we'd see if it's working, and then decide again.
Right.
It's working so well that at the Community Foundation, we want to get out of the 5-year business and get into a 10-year business. So we're working with the county we've worked with the county to kind of re-up this commitment of dollars, but with a much longer time frame, so that we can now get to work for the next 10 years with the goal of seeing those numbers continue to increase every year, the number of kids who are ready for school. So we'll continue to measure it and keep an eye on it, and every other Tuesday we'll be there. But life doesn't work in 5-year cycles. I would, if anyone else would look at a 20-year cycle, I'd be happy to do that. But 10 years seems to be about as long as I can push out people.
Great. Any other here? Thank you for taking our questions.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. If you have others, we'll check with you again.
Okay.
Is that Catskills?
Catskill, yes. First of all, thank you so much. Are we able to ask now?
Oh, well.
Hang on just a second, St. Augustine. We've got one coming in
So
from
yes,
Catskill.
we'll take Catskills and then St. Augustine. Thank you.
First, thank you for the information. Any chance you're going to be posting answers to the questions or emailing them out to the participants? I mean, we got most of it, but just in case we missed any of that information.
This webinar is being recorded, and we'll be posting the entire session for you. You could share it with someone. If you had a very specific question you were looking for the answer in writing, please let us know, and we'll do that for you.
Excellent, thank you. And the other question is, we're sitting here thinking we have probably 8 or more hospitals that folks in our counties, in our area, would go to for to have their children and have their babies. And we're wondering the challenges that might present. It sounds like you're kind of working with one main location. And so we have anywhere from Albany across the river to our Columbia Green Medical Center down to Kingston, Poughkeepsie area where families in our region would go. So we're wondering the challenges, maybe ideas, having had the experience to...
One of the things that I would recommend is that you meet with the social work from the obstetric unit, because they're going to be your contact to a program should you develop that type of a program. So as I mentioned earlier, we have nurses that visit the hospital 5 mornings a week. Unfortunately, moms have babies 7 days a week, so there's a couple that we miss. And we rely on the social worker or the staff from the unit to contact us. The majority of the babies born in Chemung County are born at Arnott Medical Center, but we also have babies that are born at Guthrie or other hospitals within the area. And we have a number of mechanisms. It may be the social worker. It may not be until the child goes to their first pediatric appointment or well baby visit, but then they get information there. And then the other thing that I think really speaks to the success of this program is the word of mouth, because one mom talks to her friend who just had a baby and says, hey, you know what, Chemung County has this program, and they'll help you with childcare, they'll help you with information, give them a call. So along with that specific medical connection, we have a very informal referral service so that people can call for themselves.
And with the School Readiness Project, with the home visitation, parents can enroll at any time. So as with some of the programs, there is a specific time when, like with Healthy Families after 3 months of age. With School Readiness, we can have a family who moves into the county and the baby may be 2 years old, and they can give us a call and they can still enroll because there's still something that we can offer them.
So I would add that the relationship with the pediatric community is really important for those after birth referrals. So pediatricians can become your partner there in finding those kids. If you have 8 places they're being delivered, that those well visits become great touch points for you.
Thank you.
And I think that you'd have very similar with larger counties. We have, as Don said, 3 school districts. So it's the same kind of thing. Like, how do you get all of your school districts together to come to some agreement? And I kind of look at it as I did with our daycare population. Even though our county's not really large, our county's divided by a river. And we have some families on the south side of the river who don't want to cross over to the north side of the river, and vice versa. And so I'm sure that there's similar things that happen in some of your counties. So we just had to kind of rethink things, and so we focused some things on the south side of the river and on the north side of the river, so that people would be more comfortable with the programming and participation. And so you may have to kind of break down in segments of your county initially to get the conversations going, and then pull it all together.
I also think that use the existing programs. You mentioned Albany. Well, I know that Albany County has a Healthy Families program. Schenectady County has a Healthy Families program. So use those mechanisms that are already in place to help bridge those connections.
I think, yeah, so St. Augustine, what was your question?
Our most important, thank you, by the way, for taking our call and letting us participate for one thing. Our most important question is cost per student.
Okay.
Do you have a prorated amount per student?
So the number that we use that's the easiest one to tell you is the amount it costs us in extra dollars per birth. Okay, because what happened was in our county we had Healthy Families, we had a child care resource and referral network, we had a Head Start program. There are millions of dollars moving through our county regardless of this project. We could go away and those things would all still be here because they were the foundation we built the project on. The money that it cost us to take this to scale, to make this thing happen, is $400 per birth per year. That simple. We have 1,000 births a year, and we invest $400,000 on top of our existing structure to make this happen.
That's
So, yeah.
That's not including the subsidized child care, the VPK.
Right.
It sounds like the nurses' visits have been happening for years at that hospital,
right,
as well as Head Start. Is that correct?
Correct. So not counting all of the existing services that have been happening for 30 or 40 years and somewhere in between. When you look at that number, we actually invest over the course of 5 years closer to $15, maybe $20 million in young children in Chemung County in the same period that we just studied SRP.
Okay. Also, is there sustained gains that you're able to see in the 6th graders that you've been tracking? Are you tracking those gains?
Well, so we will be, but our oldest kids are in 1st grade right now.
1st grade, okay.
So
you are going to be tracking that, all
so,
right?
Yeah, we'll be taking a closer look at them in 4th grade because that's when in New York State lots and lots of stuff is measured in 4th grade. So we're going to follow along with that. Gives us a chance to check in on our kids and then check against our peers around the state. So yeah, we've got a couple of years before our oldest kids hit 4th grade.
One of the commitments from all of our superintendents is that they will be tracking the data over the longitudinal work that we've been doing. I think New York State is, and I'm sure that's probably true in Florida as well, is actually working on a database that will be pretty comprehensive, looking at young people from school entry right until actually hope up to even entry into college or career. So we'll take advantage of that with those unique ID numbers that those young people have established when they first enter the system.
Is there a particular software that you're using right now or methodology to track the participation now?
We have not. We basically have just piggybacked onto the software that's available from the state for the school districts. Most of the work that I should say that part of the reason we've worked with the Children's Institute is because they've actually computerized the software that sort of gets our initial results. We were a part of the scan sheet generation in 2007. We now have an ability for the teachers to complete the screening instruments online. And again, we make the link to their readiness data at that point to the school districts and those students' unique school entry number that they're assigned. So we'll just take advantage of the software that automatically becomes part of the child's record once they enter the schools.
Okay, and one other pertinent question related to the pacing of rolling out all elements of the program. Would you recommend rolling out all 4 components of the program simultaneously, or rolling it out in a pace sequence?
We went ahead and did the whole enchilada.
Yeah, did it all at once.
It was an interesting question at the very beginning, but I think the decision, as I kind of mentioned earlier, was let's figure out, and I call it a Venn diagram, kind of where we could make the interlocking parts and take what was appropriate from all of the agencies that were serving young children, and somehow or other look at what that would look like as a whole.
There's no way to really just piece it apart and do just one of the 4 pillars because they work together so closely.
And we did a lot of legwork prior to rolling it out. So each of those 4 areas, we did focus groups. We each had committees of experts and parents and people in those particular areas and the work group. So there was so much work that went into it ahead of time that we had our plans in place. We all approved each other's plans, and then we rolled.
Yeah, we picked a day, and it was like we turned it on.
It didn't really take us very long to get people's wish list put together. You know, what program, what service, what would you do better, new, different. It really didn't take us very long. Go back to our staffs, go back to our programs, and ask people, ask them, and it didn't take very long. It was actually pretty rewarding and went pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm sorry, 2 more quick questions. This is a program that is offered throughout the entire year, not just the school year, I would imagine. And then also, if you could just please clarify that. And then also, when there are severe developmental disabilities, how are those students handled in the process in the tracking?
Who wants to take it?
Okay, well, yes, it is. It just, as I said, we turned it on and it goes. We don't stop. We don't follow school years, vacation schedules. It just goes. As far as identification of developmental disabilities, that's part of what CIDS has done for 40 years. So once we determine that there is a concern, then we would utilize our early intervention services, which are part of the health department, actually the Department of Social Services in this county, but it's an entitlement that's available to every child in New York State. And then the tracking depends upon the level of intervention that the family receives. Is that?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, other sites out there.
Central New York questions?
Okay, Central New York, yes.
Hi, Brian.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question about the school districts in terms of how were you able to bring them together on board and be on the same page?
Carefully.
It took a lot of chocolate.
Well, it was really a matter of I've been in the county long enough so that I have fairly good relationships with a number of the teachers, particularly, were my major concern. And so I talked with the superintendents, and they gratefully turned over to me the opportunity to meet with representatives from each of the school districts, the kindergarten folks particularly. As I mentioned, we had the advice and consent of Dirk Hightower, who is pretty highly regarded in the research community in the Children's Institute. And we did some basic research. We brought that committee together. I took the lead in terms of bringing before them several choices in terms of possible screening instruments. And ultimately, that group of folks came to some consensus on what those instruments should look like. We chose specifically a couple of instruments that were different in that the teachers, before they complete the instrument, actually have to look at the young people in their classrooms for up to 10 weeks before they complete them. Again, the consensus of the teachers, and then I counted on those because it was important to pick what I'll call key teachers that represented the teachers' unions as well as the sort of the rank and file and been out there and earned their spurs a little bit. I let them go back and say, here's what we're going to do. They talked to the staff at that level, and I in turn brought the recommendation to the superintendents for their advice and consent with their boards. So we tried to make it as participatory a process as possible. Get key people together, make sure you've done your homework in terms of what the options might be to be sure you are meeting the criteria that was important to them as well as to the study, and go from there.
We also had a real goal as this planning group to make sure that the involvement with the school districts added a lot of value to the school district. That we didn't ask them to collect data that only meant something to us and just went into a filing cabinet. So what the teachers understand through a lot of training, and now this is what they live and they love, is that they do this work to collect information about each student, but they receive a classroom-based analysis of their group. So they understand how many kids learn certain ways in their room, making the work more valuable to them.
I'll amplify Randy's comment a little bit. The other little trick was, if there we want to call it that, I attempted to come up with a system that basically just replaced, instruments that just replaced a system in which they were already participating. You know that in New York State, a screening for school entry is required. So instead of sort of approaching it by saying, oh, guess what, Joy or Rapture, you've got another instrument that you're going to be able to test kids with, we said, let's find something that meets the state criteria as well. So it wasn't a new instrument from the standpoint of, it was a new instrument, but it wasn't a new process. It was just a different instrument. And again, getting the collaboration of the three districts was absolutely critical, that we all approach readiness from the same lens. But it's not new work, it's just done differently.
I have an additional question to bridge on to that then. Did the cost of the new instrument and the cost of the professional development associated with using the new interest come to the school district to take care of?
Actually, we blended the initial costs, if you will, into the community foundation work. So what we did was to actually get the seed money, brought that from the foundation, and we worked with BOCES because it was a shared service. So what happened was the money was actually donated to the districts, if you will. They in turn put it into that BOCES computer services COSER. And so they've been able to reap the state aid each year to help with the kindergarten screening, the pre-K screening, and you know that was one of the changes that's happened over the last couple of years. New entry is now defined as pre-K. That has been taken from the pre-K grants that have been awarded by the state to each of our districts. Since that, again, is also a required part, the pre and post testing for pre-K is also a required part of what they normally have to do anyway. So pre-K dollars fund the pre-K screening, and we've used the BOCES COSER to enable the districts to continue the benefit of state aid each year with the kindergarten part of it.
So it sounds like you perhaps entered into a contract with Children's Institute for the software development and for consulting also, it sounds
Yes.
like?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, we were able to work
Is that
with a
ongoing
contract,
now?
and we've done it through BOCES as well. So it's a single contract, but again, it's contributed to by each of the 3 school districts.
And it is
And that's
ongoing.
an ongoing contract.
Yeah,
And I had-
I'm sorry, we've certainly benefited from the fact that now we have a pretty stable cadre of people, peer support, if you will, but we provide training each year to be sure that with the staff changes, everybody is up to speed.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to ask the amount of the investment that was made. How much would you quantify that as in terms of the dollars you invested for that?
In the early going, the initial dollars, I want to say it was about $18,000 that we put into the BOCES COSER. And once again, we've also had, we've mentioned that there are 2 components to the screening that we've established. There's the young people, the metric that we've established for the young people, but we've continued with, and I think you heard it from Randy and Ruth, this master observer idea. We have the 50 Head Start classrooms, and all of the universal pre-K classrooms are observed by a third party each year, and that money has actually come from another foundation in this locality.
And I had a question related to that. I wanted to know, has there been any benchmarking done in terms of the quality improvements in the early childhood programs?
Yes, Children's Institute did the initial work for us for the first 3 or 4 years. They produced a summative report of the work that was done. We used the ECHRs, and I won't be able to do all of the acronym in terms of making sure I get each one right. We looked at it's an environmental rating scale that we used the first 3 years, and we tracked those results. We kind of got to a plateau, if you will, in looking at what we could actually measure, and moved to an instrument called the ELCO. It's an early literacy, so we could kind of zero in on part of that. And this year we're planning to use CLASS as the instrument. In each case, the work of the master observers is compiled into a report, so we can track the results.
Hi, Peggy. And what we were hoping to do was, when we started with the ECHRs, we kept trying to go aligning it with Quality Stars New York, hoping that eventually when that would be implemented, then that whole process would just become part of our system, and then the delay in implementation. So we just kept moving forward, even though there's the delay in full implementation of Quality Stars New York. But the goal is to align those 2 things so that it's just the norm to have those kinds of screenings.
And has there been good participation from the community early childhood programs in addition to child care programs in addition to Head Start and pre-K?
The assessments have primarily been done. They've been done in 50 classrooms in the county, and it's primarily Head Start and pre-K, and then it's the contract centers that are contracted for pre-K. We initially had a couple of private daycare centers who also participated, but they've decided not to continue until Quality Stars takes hold.
It looks like we have time for one more question from the field. Anyone
have a question.
Sorry.
Like Jeopardy.
This is Monroe County.
Hi, Monroe County.
Hi. We had a couple questions on your full day pre-K. How are you defining full day pre-K, and then who's paying for full day pre-K?
Full day pre-K is literally from 8:30 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon, and it is coming from the state. It's the state dollars that are funding that pre-K. We have had some districts who put some general fund money in to be sure that happened. Of course, that's in Elmira City School District specifically. Elmira Heights, as was mentioned earlier, is still the half-day program in the county, and largely because they depend only on the state aid. Or the state grant, I should say, I guess.
Wow. But just from our experience, Monroe gets more, or Rochester City School District gets more pre-K funding than just about anybody, and there's no way we could pay for full day with that amount of money. That's interesting. Offline, let's talk some more about how much funding you guys are getting. I had a couple of demographic.
Okay, before we get into that, it's come to our attention here in the room that we can actually go until 11:30 if you all would like to continue the conversation. So if someone had additional questions, we're happy to stay. If you need to at 11 go, we understand that, but so we'll finish up the questions from Monroe County, but we can take additional questions. Okay, demographics, here we go.
I had a couple of demographic questions. What's the poverty rate of Chemung, or maybe an easy way to look at that is in your school district, how many kids are eligible for free and reduced lunch?
Okay.
Bill, you want to talk about?
It's about 2/3. On just a global snapshot, it's about 2/3.
Wow.
And it varies a little bit. It varies a little bit by school district. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's a significant portion of the population and growing.
I'm surprised. And then looking at your moms who didn't graduate from high school, what percentage of your moms did not graduate from high school?
I'm going to say I can only give you the county numbers, which are somewhere in the order of about 25%.
Okay.
How many additional nurses do they have to?
Okay. Somebody else wanted to know how many nurses are providing your home visiting service, or how many additional did you guys have to fund on top of what funding you're already getting?
Okay, so keep in mind that this is utilizing the services that were already there, the Healthy Families Program, all of that. And then we had to hire an additional 2.5 FTE. But this is basically at somewhat of a reduced schedule. And I don't know if we ever talked about this, but originally when we started, we were interested in providing services until the children were 5. And then because of some reductions in funding, we had to scale back and we went to 3. We could use an additional 4 nurses to provide the level of intervention that ideally we would like to provide.
So how many nurse home visitors do you have overall for the county?
Wow. Well, why don't we make it home visitors in general, and I would say we would need 16 to 18 total.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying home visitors is because, again, Healthy Families Program, which is an important part of it, they're not nurses, they're home visitors. But so to look for an entire complement of home visitation, it's 16 to 18 in total.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding, I'm the CPSE chairperson for the Rochester City School District. Did you find an increase in the referrals to CPSE in the 3 to 5-year-old ranges for the school districts as you were expanding on this project?
I can address that just briefly from the WISE perspective. We have 4 UPK rooms, and then we have a preschool room that leads into that program. And we've had meetings with the Horseheads District CPSE person, and they have made early intervention visits and connected us with people who will come observe those behaviors so that we can then track them a little bit more readily, and then also to educate our educators about what to look for. You know, what is normal childhood behavior, what is something outside of that realm, and then how do you connect with those early intervention services. So we've seen it in our rooms.
As far as the county goes, at a whole, though, CIDS has been providing developmental screenings for children from roughly 6 months until they enroll in kindergarten. So because we have been providing that services, it's maintained relatively constant.
Right. Yeah, I would confirm that as well. For Head Start's purposes, the referrals for CPSE have remained reasonably constant. What we are discovering, though, is that with the SRP and our concerted efforts to do this, the number of appropriate referrals or at at the right time, the right place for children is increasing. So we're going to engage in a referral process that isn't necessary. It's done at the right time in the right place.
Thank you. Any other questions from Monroe County?
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right, other questions? Another site?
I have a question.
Okay, who is this?
My name is Dawn Daniello. I'm the infant toddler specialist in Nassau County.
Okay.
And I was wondering how and if you use the services of the infant toddler specialists in your community.
Well, the infant toddler specialist is housed at the Child Care Council, and because we're part of the our home, the lead contract is Rochester, and so it's a very small piece of someone's job, and so how that person is involved is strictly by their normal work that the infant toddler specialists have to do. So it's like seamless. It's just like part of what she's required to do anyway as part of our contract.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, Western Suffolk?
Yes, I have a question from Tompkins. Oh, I wanted to know if there's been a decrease in child placement in 5 years and younger during this period.
That's a good question.
Don't
No,
know.
it's not.
I don't have the number.
I don't have the numbers in front of us. My instinct says no. I don't think we have seen a decrease. I think.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We'll have to check that one out.
or even a change in the number of calls that are coming in.
Or hotline calls.
The hotline calls of families with 0 to 5.
You did say referrals were going in.
We haven't tracked that data.
We'll add that to our next
Yeah, we will.
list of
Okay. That's a good one. But yeah, we've not tracked that. Other questions? We might make it, yeah.
We have one from our policies.
Okay, hello.
I have a question in regards to, you said the pre-K goes till 2:30. Do you have wraparound care available for those children?
Unfortunately, no longer.
It depends on the program. It depends on the program, I will say before.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we do. It's now, unfortunately, that's essentially privately funded. The parent pays for that. It's not funded through the county or the state, but it is available in certain locations.
Initially, one of the things that we actually piloted wraparound services for pre-K and Head Start. The focus was not on whether or not they needed daycare, however, it was more, does the child need additional socialization or cognitive work or those kinds of things. That was our focus. Unfortunately, the funding, and the Child Care Council managed that by contracting with Head Start to provide that wraparound service. Unfortunately, the funding for that, the county was getting from the state, and that funding went away. So the big scale of wraparound services that were free to those parents is now gone. It's on our radar to bring back as soon as we can find the funds to do that. And in the meantime, it's some patchwork stuff, as Blair talked about.
But I think that's the role of the local nonprofits, how they can actually foster and facilitate this, going forward into the future, is how do we leverage what we have, through our ability to access financing or fundraising or all of that stuff to then lend itself to the wraparound services that are the gaps. We're trying to fill the gaps.
We have another question. The way I understand the project kind of was conceived as out of community economic development and the need that your community identified for this, and school readiness was the way that it got started. So I'm just wondering if you have any kind of future prospects for how to complete the pipeline and make sure that kids, when you do test them for their 4th grade reading levels, and make sure that they're still on track. Are you preparing yourselves for interventions throughout the lifespan, kind of throughout the pipeline, or is this kind of strictly
strictly going to be a pre-K project?
Timely question. Actually, I've been invited to be a part of a couple of groups in the community that are beginning to look at the idea of cradle to career. I think the model that we have brought, or at least a state representative brought to us, was the Strive model that exists in Cincinnati. We, as far as Readiness Project is concerned, will probably stay within the piece of this that would be our car on the train. But I think the good news for me is that the notion of coalitions of existing agencies coming together to do something significant is a message. So the model has started to take some hold in the minds of school districts and other folks who are there. The definition of what those cars will be on that train, I think, are very much still a work in progress. I'm sure that all of you are very much aware of the change in state standards, the implementation of Common Core, the impact that electronics is having on basic classroom instruction. And I would be remiss if I didn't say part of this conversation is being prompted simply by the lack of money. The state cap has worked in our area, I'm sure, as diligently as it has in others. And so school districts are asking, how do we reconstitute what we have to hopefully continue to make a difference for young people? So long answer, I suppose, to just say we'll probably stay with the niche that we have carved out. We would love to be able to continue and seem to be getting invitations now to a conversation that's taking place in the wider community about what does that support model look like as the young people proceed through the system.
When you spoke about parent engagement, you talked about expanding family resource centers. Could you talk a little bit more what your resource centers look like and where they might be located? Are they libraries, in the hospitals, schools?
I don't mind talking a little bit about that, but there are also a couple of people on this School Readiness Steering Committee that are also on the board of one of those local resource centers, so they can follow up after I'm done. But the School Readiness Project was able to help get a new resource center off the ground, and that is housed in a local church. Actually, they wanted to take on a community project. Another resource center that was already existing was in the Elmira City School District, and it's owned by the school and run by the school. So we were able to expand that, so there are now 2 resource centers in our county, and I guess our board reps from that resource center can probably expand on that.
My next mission today is to actually chair the meeting of the resource center that exists up in the northern part of our county. And as Stephanie mentions, it's actually housed in a church. And we've had, in our grant, we're still we're old, but we're young in the sense that 5 or 6 years is not a lot of time. And the conversation that we've had is how do we begin to expand that network to be as geographically proximate to parents as possible, although even the existing centers parents seem to find a way to get to them. And they're pretty much an informal kind of program. We really emphasize in the course of those deliberations or delivery of services, the peer-to-peer kinds of conversation that are important. We have a very experienced person who is the head of the resource center, the one I just mentioned in the northern part of the county, who is really excellent at just simply recognizing or at least developing the relationship and the trust that's required in that kind of environment for parents to be able to feel comfortable to come and approach her with specific issues. Sometimes it'll come from observations she's made just in the course of watching young people in informal play. The hours are limited. We don't have lots of money we've been able to put into that particular project. But in our area, it's pretty significant when something that's run on what is now about a $60,000 budget actually has attracted 1,500 to 1,600 parents and families a year now, and it's only in its 3rd year of operation. It's one of the ways that strategically we're trying to think about how do we do more for parents who are basically raising their children in the home. And what data we have seem to indicate that that's a little over 50% of the parents in our county really have those young people in their homes until they're 3 or 4. So we're thinking about how to offer like a preschool co-op as part of that delivery of service. But at this stage, again, I think the value has been, the parent feedback has been simply, it's a respectful, safe environment where I can bring my issues, and it's not like somebody told me I had to do it. I don't know if that helps or not, but.
It does, thank you.
One more question from Oneida. I guess this would probably be directed to Randy from the Community Foundation perspective. Have you been able to leverage into the business community or private donors increased interest in funding programs that are investing in the community, college ready, business ready, career ready? Where's the business community around your table?
Well, we haven't tried, frankly, not just to be very honest with you. The foundation here, we're heavily unrestricted permanent endowment, so we're able to fund this project out of unrestricted dollars, meaning we don't need to do any kind of annual campaign or business campaign in order to continue our funding commitment into the future or at any point. We have made sure to present our project to the business community so they understand it. I spent a lot of time at the beginning of this project in front of the Chamber of Commerce Board and Rotaries and all of the places where business people gather to explain it so that they could encourage their employees, for instance, to participate, and if they need to give their employees an hour off to go home and meet their nurse home visitors, that they can be helpful in that way. We find that our business community here is pretty leveraged as far as their charitable donations. They're already doing a lot. There just isn't a lot of extra money hanging around. So this is a time we just haven't approached them in that manner. Moving forward, we've discussed that it would be helpful to us to have a business champion and perhaps someone from the business community that would stand up and talk about this issue and its importance. But we really haven't gone down that road. What we've had in place of that is in our community, we've had Carl Hayden, who is a retired attorney here in Elmira. He was chancellor of the Board of Regents for a number of years. So his connections statewide with the education system, and in his time here, he was also, he's chair of our Readiness Council that monitors this program on behalf of the Community Foundation Board of Directors. With him as a community champion, it's almost like he's so big, you don't need a ton of others. Yeah. But it's a great point. It's just not something we've done.
We do have selected businesses. There are certain businesses like the Eaton Foundation in Horseheads who has donated money, quite a lot of money for us to get books to hand out to children on our home visits. They've been a part of, came to the press conference and really believe in the School Readiness Project and have donated the books, which has been great too.
I have one more question. So
other questions from that site?
Next question from Oneida County. About did it increase?
We can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Hang on a second, I'm sorry. My finger slipped and turned our volume down a little bit. Can you start the question again?
My question is, did this project spur an increase or uptake in services that were already available, and specifically your child care subsidy money? Did you see an impact on the uptake of that, or WIC, or early intervention?
With child care subsidies, we really didn't see an increase because we were maxed out anyway. And in fact, we had an issue where we had to decrease the number of cases on the subsidy caseload. So we actually saw a negative impact with a decrease in daycare providers. So we're currently building that back. So in that area, we really didn't see an increase in requests or participation, or I don't know about early intervention.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to see if Wayne has any questions. No? Okay. Madison?
No questions.
Okay, thanks. Finger Lakes? I think we did Binghamton. Okay, and Binghamton. Any questions from Binghamton? Looks like they're packing up.
Someone said I had a question.
Any other questions?
Here's one. Oh, she's just waving.
Question or?
No, she's waving.
Are you waving or We have one more from Ithaca.
All right.
I had one. I guess I'm wondering, your results are really incredible, and I'm wondering, as you move forward, you said, I think, that 28% of kids are, teachers have rated them as ready for kindergarten, and I'm wondering if you had to identify, how would you increase that number so that, 50%, 60%, as you move forward.
Maybe we have a miscommunication. 28% of kids have been rated fully ready, meaning an 8 on a scale of 0 to 8. And we have over 68% of kids are ready.
Okay. Okay.
So increasing the number of kids who are super ready, essentially they're almost ready for first grade, isn't our goal.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions out there? All right, well, just to let you know our next steps, we actually plan to send a survey out electronically on these topics to see where you may want to learn a little bit more, and we can go deeper in future communications. We'd be happy to do this again. This is our first time ever hosting a webinar, so we had a lot to learn, and now I think we feel confident we can try it. We'd like to look at perhaps maybe a quarterly conversation on the topic of school readiness in the state, because at the end of the day, what we'd love to hear is what you're doing as well. It'd be great for us to learn from you, and if we could, using a survey, identify several topics to address throughout the year, that would allow us to have more of a dialogue rather than just a presentation and then questions afterwards. If you have a specific question that just didn't get answered, here we have a slide with ways you can communicate with us. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, we're happy to talk to you. We do this is our thing. So if there's ever a chance to sit and talk about school readiness, we will take it. And we look forward to having that conversation with you moving forward. Anything to add, gang?
Only just thank you, folks. I know that winter in upstate New York is what it is, and we won't count the folks in Augustine, Florida. But it takes a lot to be able to carve some time out. And your survey will also give us an opportunity to kind of improve what we're doing. We've sort of invented this process on the fly, but it seemed like the best way to begin to engage in the conversation, which is what I'm sure, because you're all there, is as important to you as it is to us, and that is the communities or the states or whatever way you want to round it, their investment in the success of little people and the importance of that. So thank you all so very much.
And just so you know, this has been recorded and will be posted on our website. If you want an opportunity for one of your colleagues to experience the thrill of the first SRP webinar, that will be available to you free of charge. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great day, everybody, and get home safely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, St. Augustine.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Let us know when you need us to visit. Please make it during winter.